Afternoon. I am delighted. My name is Jacqueline Shipe. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Global Ties Alabama. And I'm delighted to welcome our Global Perspectives Institute program this afternoon. We've had a chance to have a little pre-talk, and it's just lovely to see a topic that's really dealing with a global issue. Most of our participants are here throughout the state of Alabama. But as we spoke with one another, there's a lot of global representation from this panel in terms of their roots. I was marveling when Rachel brought up the Cuba connection, because my mom is from, and I lived in New York in a Hasidic Jewish neighborhood. So I understand what it means to live between worlds and to be in a multicultural environment. I was also a history major, and when Dr. Nash brought up about this initiative, I fell in love with the topic to begin with. And so we're just delighted that our panelists have taken the time out of their very busy schedules to join us to share about the diaspora, and exchange across the diaspora is the theme for this afternoon. And so I'm going to, without further delay, turn it over to Dr. Nash. He's a very humble person. I met him about 12 years ago when I worked in the UA system. And he is now the retired Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs for the UA system. He had been in that role for 28 years. And the thing that really gets to me, when he said he was retired, I immediately contacted him to see if he could do something else. And he listed this long list of leadership roles that he has now, even though he's retired. So I think you'll understand as he moderates this panel. Dr. Nash, take it away.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you so very much. And thanks to all of you who joined us today. And we'll, I think, have others join as time goes on. So Jackie, we did meet about 12 years ago, and I appreciate the opportunity to reconnect. I was telling the group last night when we had a little pre-gathering that I had had the opportunity of meeting you, and when we somehow or the other, I think it was by virtue of fate or something, that I got onto your email list and I reconnected with Global Ties Alabama and have been joining in since then. So I'm not the expert. The others that you see on the screen are the experts. So I'm actually going to introduce it and turn it over. And we have folk who know the history, people who were there from the beginning, people who caused this African diaspora activity and study to come about, to teachers who are teaching every day the students that are involved with the advanced placement program where all of this takes place. And so let me just say who each person is. And when I say your name, if you'll just raise your hands. Well, the names are up there. I think everybody's name is up there. So first of all, we have Cassie Freeman, Dr. Cassie Freeman, who's president and CEO of the African Diaspora Consortium. She will kick us off in just a few minutes. After her, in alphabetical order, are Parker Evans. Parker is a graduate student at the University of Alabama and has assisted the students and the work and the teachers at Central High School in Tuscaloosa. After Parker is Jennifer Hines. Jennifer is the International Baccalaureate Coordinator for Central High School and Tuscaloosa City Schools. And then Carrie Hurt is Advanced Placement Capstone Teacher at Grissom High School in Huntsville, Alabama. After Carrie is Carrie Jones, who is the Literacy Coach at Central High School in Tuscaloosa. After her is Dr. Utz McKnight, who's chair of the Department of Race and Gender Studies at the University of Alabama. And then Rachel Nunez, who is Senior Director, Advanced Placement Curriculum, Instruction and Assessment with the College Board. Cassie will get us started. Dr. Freeman will get us started, and then she'll toss it to Rachel, and Rachel to our teachers, and we'll engage in discussion. For those of you others who have joined us today, if you'll use the chat feature in this, I will monitor that, and I think you have, Jackie, monitored that as well, haven't you? Yes, so we'll monitor that and see if there are any questions or comments that anyone wants to make. So with that quick introduction, let me turn it over to Dr. Cassie Freeman, and Dr. Freeman will get us started. Cassie, take it away.
Thank you so very much. Let me just say that we are absolutely delighted for those of you who have joined us to hear about this exciting and consequential work. I have to tell you that this is especially gratifying for me as an Alabamian, because our state, the state of Alabama, has been really one of the leaders. The schools have been the leaders in offering African diaspora content incorporated in AP Seminar. And you will hear from our phenomenal teachers. There have been some of the lead teachers in the project along the way. And we owe all of this to Dr. Charles Nash, who has actually, from the beginning, he actually, and Carrie, you will speak to this, and both Carrie and Jennifer will also speak to confirm this. He's been the one to recruit the schools, recruit the teachers, visited the schools, listened to presentations. So we owe so much of this, support the university partnerships, so we owe much of this to him. My task today is to just provide you a brief, and Rachel's probably shaking her head like I never do anything brief, brief overview of the, of the vision and the process that led to the accomplishments of our work so far. Actually, the vision for this work began a long time ago. While I was growing up in Fayette, Alabama, up the road from Nick Saban country and the Crimson Tide. And I told myself that one day I would go far away and to see and experience the world. And after having the opportunities to study at the university, first at the University of Oslo, Norway, followed by the University of Vienna, Austria, and then 2 terms as a visiting scholar professor at university in Budapest, Hungary. On those travels, I met African descendants everywhere. And I don't know why I was surprised to know or to learn that we had a shared history and shared experiences. But when I came back home, I also, from each time from those experiences, I also was almost saddened that other students who had studied abroad had not even had the chance to interact or get to know African descendants or different cultures in different countries. The African descendant population is important. So I recognize that that was a void that needed to be addressed, not just because, I mean, for so many different reasons. One being it's the largest forced migration dispersal of people in history. But in addition to that, all the wonderful, issues around resilience, the way they've come back, and the way they, most importantly, the way they have impacted cultures everywhere around the world. So if you would then fast forward, years after being a higher education leader, I found kindred spirits in teachers, colleagues at Teachers College and Columbia University, and at ETS. It was actually Dr. Michael Nettles who suggested that we fill this void, get approval from the College Board to address the void in their AP offering. And much to our surprise and delight, the Senior Vice President Packer at the College Board immediately agreed. And I like to emphasize that because, you know, sometimes people think that, well, the College Board is not interested, but he immediately agreed, and we and suggested that we offer it, the African diaspora content, through the AP seminar. We really like that challenge for so many different reasons. And And you will get a chance to hear from Rachel in a little bit about the College Board role in the development process with this. And Rachel has become masterful. I have to give her that credit in helping us with this work. But I wanted to just share with you a few things, just a couple of things that when we were, some guiding principles of our work and what we wanted our students, the ways we wanted to impact the students. So we didn't start without a map of some sort. First, we chose African diaspora content because it places African Americans and other African descendants in other countries in historical context. Starting with African American history has to have a starting point, and understanding African diaspora helps that, gives that life. We agreed that the content must be developed by an international team, and our team is comprised of colleagues around globally. Our team strongly agreed that the arts must play an outsized role in interconnectedness for all groups and cultures to understand. And it must be and the content must be multidisciplinary. Importantly, we began with the belief that AD content is, and this is an important, we believe it's important for all students to know, not just African Americans. And lastly, I want to just share with you the 4 overall arching ways we wanted the AD content to impact student outcome. 1, students should leave the AP seminar thinking and talking about the African diaspora. Students should have a sense of possibilities for broader global identity. Students should be engaged in and stimulated by the historical and current role of the arts in communication, cultural engagement, and community uplift. And the course should make the African diaspora relevant in the digital age. Now, we think with this extraordinary team here in Alabama and our other colleagues in other locations, that we hit the nail on the head for each goal and guiding principle we developed. And now Rachel has played a huge role in this, and we'll talk to you some about the development process, but I can't say enough as she comes forward about the extraordinary teachers who make this work possible. And I hope I have a chance to say more about how one of Carrie's students stood in front of a huge audience at the Jazz at Lincoln Center and talked about the impact that the African diaspora had on her life and her students and her colleagues' life, her peers, and Sarah Tran. So that's kind of the example of the work. And the same thing we had the opportunity to see at the school in Tuscaloosa. So without further delay, let me bring Rachel forward, and we hope you'll leave being as excited about our work as we are today. Thank you. Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks so much, Cassie. So I'm just going to talk for about just a few minutes, just a level set where we're at, because I don't know if everybody has the same understanding. We talk about this AP seminar. So I just wanted to give everybody a little bit of background and then talk about why we worked with the African diaspora to develop a special version of this AP course. So if you just bear with me 1 second, I will try and share my screen and try and do it without causing any, hopefully, you can all see a screen with lots of boxes on. Okay, thank you, Jess. Okay, so just to level set for 1 minute. She says, I've got to minimize you guys. So for those of you not aware, the College Board is a not-for-profit, membership-driven educational organization with over 6,000 educational institutions as members worldwide. So it's a big organization, and it offers a wide range of exams for students at high school and beyond. But specifically today, we're talking about the advanced placement or AP exams. AP exams are offered in 38 subjects, as you can see, all of which are developed through a partnership between higher education and high school. And these courses and exams are designed to allow high school students to do first year college level work whilst they're still in high school. So usually taken by 10th, 12th, or 10th, 11th or 12th graders in order to gain credit or placement at college. AP exams are offered across the world, and in 2019 there were over 5 million exams taken by just over 2 million students. So it's quite wide-reaching. So in 2015, 2 additional courses, which are very different to the other AP exams, were introduced, and this was part of something called the AP Capstone Diploma Program, which, like I say, are different to other AP exams because they tend to be sort of 3-hour exams, and there might be ones you're more familiar with, 3-hour end of course exams. These are all skills-based and have through course assessments and performance tasks rather than being purely assessed by exam. And right now we have about 75,000 students around the world that are doing these courses. So I won't spend very long on this because I don't want to go into too much detail and bore everyone, but I think it's important to sort of understand how the marriage of African diaspora content and an AP seminar came about. Bear with me one sec. So as I said, these 2 courses are very different to other AP exams, and they are very much skills focused rather than content based. What this means is these are kind of content agnostic. All of the learning objectives and everything in the course are really about developing students' skills of scholarly research, critical thinking. They have to work in teams, so collaboration, and presenting their academic work as well. So it's a sort of 2-year articulated program. The first year, the students take AP seminar to develop the skills in order to prepare them for AP research, which is a year-long independent study and independent investigation where they produce and present their own original research paper of about 5,000 words, and then do a 15-minute presentation and an oral defense of their research too. So what students are really learning in AP seminar is that it's really a kind of seminar. It's like a seminar course would be an interdisciplinary seminar course would be in a first-year higher ed course. It's a foundational course that engages students in cross-curricular conversations. So what students are really learning is how to kind of investigate academic and real-world topics from multiple perspectives. And as Cassie mentioned, one of the key things about AP seminar is its interdisciplinary nature or transdisciplinary nature. We make sure that students are looking at topics and issues from, say, historical, economic, sociological perspectives. It's not just one thing, and we're trying to get them to look at nuance and complexity of particular topics and issues, and not just sort of the pro-con, which is so typical of teenagers. They also then have to gather and analyze relevant information from credible sources, so they get taught research skills, web literacy, media literacy, and how to use academic databases and actually look at peer-reviewed work. They also then have to present their own perspective on a particular topic or issue, so they learn to develop arguments, drawing on real quality, credible evidence. They also have to do a team project and do presentations, as I mentioned before. Now, as I said, AP seminar is kind of content agnostic. So there are multiple topics, and this can be teacher, school, or student choice, usually directed by the teacher. And different schools do different types of themes as they go through. But one of the ones that we've paid a lot of attention to and have been working with Cassie and her team at the African Diaspora Consortium on is developing a version that is for the African diaspora. So just to give you a little bit more framing on what students are doing in AP seminar, it's a year-long course. So they, having slide transitions issues, my apologies. So they begin the year, the first semester, they would be investigating these different topics, and they would be developing their skills by doing, a teacher might introduce a topic, give them some background information, and then they might go and do Socratic seminars, discussing particular articles and points of view, and then they might go and do their own research to write an essay and then present their own perspective on a topic or issue. So they get lots of practice at doing that throughout the first semester. And then unlike the other AP courses, the rest of the assessment is really performance tasks that go through the second semester. So these are through course assessments. So they do a team project where they work together and students choose their own topics. And this is where it gets really exciting and very, really pertinent and really helpful for the African diaspora. And then they do an individual piece of research, and then there is a two-hour exam. So why even begin with the African diaspora? So given the range of themes that teachers could potentially choose for AP seminar, why have we focused on this particular version with the help of Cassie and Charles and team? There's two main reasons why study the African diaspora. As Cassie mentioned, first, its sheer size and importance. And I'm going to quote our colleague, Dr. Ernest Morel here. Were it an independent nation, the African diaspora would be the third largest country on earth, only behind India and China, ahead of the United States. On the low end of estimations, there's like they say, it's like a couple of 100 million people. And on the upper end, 500 million people would represent the African diaspora. And if you put that together with the content of Africa, that's more than 20% of the world's population, and an even bigger percentage of its growth. I think recent UNICEF reports have indicated that birth rates in sub-Saharan Africa continue to grow, as do the African diaspora populations in Latin America, in Europe, as well as the United States. So it's a really hugely significant proportion of the world, and it's an increasingly growing percentage of that world. Secondly, and this is where it all connects really, is the African diaspora's absence, but value, how much it adds value to students really wanting to become global citizens, critical thinkers and scholars. If we want them to engage in that world, they really need to engage with this big part that is typically undertaught and underrepresented. We don't see much about it as much in the media, and students quite often typically have pretty narrow views of Africa and sometimes the descendants of Africa as well. So essentially, in the broader sense, why study the African diaspora? It's undertaught, and it's a huge and growing proportion of this world. I mean, the United States contains less than 5% of the world's population. So if we're really going to have our classrooms as launch pads into the world out there, we're going to have to think about the other 95%. So why African diaspora with seminar specifically? There are some sort of key elements that make AP Seminar and the African diaspora content work so well together. Firstly is what we talked about before, it's inter or transdisciplinary in nature. The African diaspora course can be explored through historical perspectives, of course, but also through economic, sociological, political perspectives as well. For example, students can investigate how identities are formed and shaped in everyday cultural practice within and against larger structures of intended domination. And when you look at the culture and all the way that culture continues to manifest itself, for example, through art, dance, and music, you can see that it's not just in response to domination, really, in as much as it's in transcendence of that domination. And by its very nature, it allows many ways of making connections across time and place, which allows students to take their explorations in really rich and varied directions. And this makes it both accessible and engaging for students from all backgrounds. And I think that's one of the key points that Cassie was making as well. And I think hopefully our teachers can explain, this is not just for African American students. This really resonates and enables students to find their own path. So in that, secondly, looking at the kind of themes that teachers have used, they allow for teaching of lesser known content, but provide a chance to reframe it in a more positive way. Many students, just learn about the slave trade, Jim Crow, Great Migration, and civil rights, done. But what the seminar allows us to do is to think about how can we take issues that are framed as a negative, like this is what happened to you, or this is what happened to this group of people, and talk about what were the responses to those events? How was their pushback or even transcendence as an important word, I think, when talking about this subject matter. So students were able to research and explore how oppression was resisted across the diaspora. And that can help students see connections across the globe and discover perspectives that they may not have come across before. So in summary, basically, the African diaspora provides key ways for students to see how they are connected to communities across the globe. As Cassie was saying, her own experience gave her that, and that really is what initiated this project way back. But they can learn content that they may not have encountered before in a way that is driven by their own interests, because they get to select their team project. They get to select their own research questions. So that's one of the key points of why the African diaspora content marries so well with AP Seminar. So just finally then, just before I hand over to the really possibly the more interesting part with the pilot teachers to talk about their experiences. What you can see here is the 11 pilot schools that taught AP seminar with African diaspora content in the last year. We've recently been holding webinars with 80 or so schools who are also interested in bringing this in. And you can see there here from the map, there are connections across the country, but especially here in Alabama. And on that note, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I will hand over to Carrie Hurt, who is one of the pilot teachers here, to talk about his experiences and his students' experiences. So Carrie, you want to take it away?
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. So as Rachel said, I'm Carrie Hurt and I teach at Grissom High School in Huntsville, Alabama, which is a large suburban school with a primarily white, about 77% white population. We are in a bit of a demographic shift. We changed school districts 3 years ago, and so that increased our both African American and Hispanic population some, but I think it's probably going to be stable where it is from now on. So regardless, just a little background. I began teaching AP Seminar when it was nationally rolled out in 2015. And for the first 2 years, struggled through selecting my own themes, and I worked with things of immigration. I worked with a little bit with using terrorism as a theme, trying to find something that was interesting and important and compelling, but mostly that my students felt interested enough in that they could find topics that they were willing to invest the time and effort that's necessary to succeed in the course. As Rachel said, the course is a skills-based course, but there's got to be content with enough depth to exercise the skills. So, so that's the hard part, especially as a new seminar teacher. You've got to find content that interests the kids and draws them in enough so that they're willing to exercise those skills and learn those skills in order to succeed on the national exam. During the second year when I was teaching, I was approached by Cassie and Charles and Dale Fleury and some other people were in on this with this idea, and it was instantly appealing to me. I saw both the being in Alabama, being in a majority white district in Alabama, I guess you could say I saw the handwriting on the wall that this was something that they needed to know, and it was something that I myself, even though I'm comfortable with the content, the history knowledge of the content, there's an awful lot of the cultural parts of it that I just never considered. And so it was a learning opportunity for me from that standpoint, especially from the events of the last 3 years and especially of this past summer, that allow me to have a different perspective. And I hope to be able to share that perspective with my students from their investigations. So as this has developed, as I've been doing it for 3 years, in my first year, I had a very good group, but they concentrated on historic things. They concentrated on African influence in other parts of the world, African influence in China, African influence in India, in South America, in various countries in South America, and the Caribbean. That group, and they did very well with those topics, and they're perfectly valid topics. But then my next year, the second year, I had students who came in and they began to study more abstract things. They began to study colorism. They began to study the effects of racism against African immigrants in other countries based on things other than race. I had one student do a very detailed analysis on breaking down discrimination in Canada among people with AIDS, and how African immigrants were singled out because they were believed to be more likely to be carrying and to be infected with AIDS. So anyway, those papers were broader, and then this most recent year we got into the makeup industry and how the makeup industry has been forced to reckon with not recognizing the variety of skin tones available, primarily within the diaspora. We get into, I have one of my band students work on a syncopation on African rhythms that were unattributed in American music forms. And so they've gotten into some really deep, really abstract things, but it all goes back to their recognizing the overarching presence of the diaspora, which is really all I hoped for. That's what I asked for, is for people to just recognize that, that we're not all the same and that we shouldn't be all the same, but that we all have a story, and to look at those stories and to be able to use the seminar framework as a way to investigate those stories in a valid way, in a way that is not just, I'm going to go out and read this story because I'm interested in it, but I can approach it from the standpoint of I want to learn more, I want to understand more, and then a necessary skill in the seminar framework is to be able to transmit that to other people. So they have to be able to present and talk about these things in a competent fashion. So it means they've got to do deeper research than just reading an article or seeing a story. So the point of what I've done in my experience has been that I've watched some of the best and brightest kids that I come across have their eyes opened. And as teachers, we're always looking for those aha moments, or those light bulb moments, people call them. And I've seen dozens. I've watched Asian students engage with white students to correct them on some of their misunderstandings of things. I've had African American students come to us to ask, if we knew more of a history or if we could explain things. And, I have to say, it gives me a good feeling to feel like I'm having a positive influence, but also it is important to give these kids this opportunity for this growth and this outreach within this context of earning college credit for a skills-based class. Okay, so that's enough for me. If anybody has questions or comments, please feel free. I'll be here to answer them. And am I supposed to pass on to Carrie and Jennifer?
Okay,
Yeah.
it's either Carrie or it's Jennifer, and whichever's going first. They said they were a tag team. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I will let them do that, and then I'll go see who's interrupting my Zoom call.
Okay. Who's
I'm
up?
Katie Jones, and we can kind of tag team it together.
We're tag team together.
But we're at Central High School in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I would say our population is about 95% African American, and we're a Title I school. We're also an IB school, which is the International Baccalaureate, which is kind of like AP, but a little different. So it's kind of fun to introduce. We're always trying to encourage kids to involve themselves in AP as well. And so we ended up with our first class last year full of 14 kids who were seeking the IB diploma, but chose this as an elective. So they really challenged themselves, kind of get out of their comfort zone and include this class. And so Ms. Hines and I were talking today and this morning about the kind of stories that we wanted to include about our kids and the connections that they made and the importance of the class and how it impacted them. And so we just had a couple of examples that we wanted to share today. So Ms. Hines, you want to start?
Okay, yeah, first I would just like to say we were approached by Dr. Sutton, Dr. Nash, and Dr. Freeman. And when you guys presented the opportunity, I thought it was great. It was a great opportunity. I said, hey, we're an IB school anyway, so we focus a lot on in the cultural things and understanding and teaching kids to respect other cultures. So I felt like it would be a great marriage between the two. And so it was just a great experience, and we're just thankful for the opportunity that you guys have provided for us and for our students, and for the support of the ADC as well. We'll get into that a little later. But the experience that we wanted to share that our students had, our IB Spanish teacher took a field trip, and Ms. Jones and I were chaperones. So we went to watch this Spanish and Latin, flamenco show, and it was just awesome. And I just watched our kids. So after the show, one of our kids, he was so excited about it, and he was a white student, and he was so excited, and he was like, Ms. Hines, this is what we talked about in our class, in our AP class. He was like, this is what we talked about. This is what I'm doing. We studied the arts, the music and the dance, and he was like, oh my goodness, like this is so related to the topic that I want to do. And he was able to see the guess the impact that Africa had on these dances, whether it was Latin or Spanish. And I thought that was so great that his eyes was open and he was so excited that he had the opportunity to even research and kind of talk about and discuss these types of things in class. And when I saw their eyes open, they were just like, oh, I know that word. I know that word. We talked about that. We talked about that. And just to see their interactions with each other, it just made me feel good to just be a part of such an important program. So it was a tremendous experience for myself as well as for our students. And for them to actually, like I said, to be able to recognize some of the vocabulary and recognize different things that we had discussed in the class was just awesome. It was just awesome.
I think one of the other things that we wanted to include was the skill building and how important that was. And they got to build those skills while talking about, you know, current contemporary events that were important to them and the history that brought them to that point. And so we would have amazing conversations about just the differences of our own cultural experiences that we brought to the table when we're looking at different topics and ideas. And then also, you know, being able to put those into skills through presentation and persuasion and writing the essay. And we had, our class was mostly juniors, and we had one sophomore with us this time. She was very brave. And she just came to me one time, you know, when we were on a mock assessment and essay, and she said, you know what, I'm so proud of myself for doing this because I have really, you know, learned to write a paper. And this is going to, not only did we learn so much, but I feel so much more confident attacking the next 2 years in college. And I think it really gave her that confidence of, I can write a college paper before she even got there. And she did decide to do some dual enrollment because of her confidence that she gained in the class. And so I think that was really important for them to see that, you know, to build those skills and have that opportunity to do it, but yet with a content that was so interesting and involved with them that they really learned from each other discussing.
They did, even much so to some of them, the topics that we discussed, were talking to me about what they wanted to write their extended essay on for IB. And so I'm just kind of happy that they find something that they're very interested about to actually conduct more research. And like Carrie said, that the skills definitely help them to build them up to participate on the exam as well as IB as well.
And I think that the last thing that we talked about including was just the support from the ADC and how it sharpened our skills as practitioners. Jennifer and I have both been out of the classroom in the roles that we serve the school, but getting back into the seminar class was just phenomenal. We both loved being back into that educator role and, you know, in that day-to-day teaching role. We really enjoyed that, but also we had the support of a network across the country and across the world. And so if we needed a document to explore this particular argumentative, we could reach out to people in Miami and New York who would give us that. And we had the Athena platform that we were able to use and attach and connect with other teachers across the country that really sharpened our skills in AP and then also with the Diaspora as well. So the experience overall was not just important to the students, but it affected the two of us as well.
Yes, Athena, yes, was definitely very, very beneficial in regards to having a platform, having a resource that we can go to and pull from. We didn't get a chance to do it this semester, but it's in the works. Hopefully, we want to at least do some type of Zoom meeting with a different class. I think that'll be great. So we're going to reach out to some of our colleagues and friends that newly friends that we met across the world. So we're very excited about it. So we'll look forward to doing that.
Okay, that sounds like you're excited. I bet you are. It looks like you are. So let's ask our colleagues from the university, Dr. McKnight, perhaps to start, and Parker to add any comments that he might want to in terms of the partnership, because one of the things that we wanted to do, we started it at Grissom with Kerry and his relationship with Aaron at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, and then we added for Central High School, the University of Alabama here in Tuscaloosa, because we wanted it to be a partnership among the ADC, among College Board, and of course, with our university partners. So Dr. McKnight, say what you want to say about how this has been impactful from your perspective.
So I kind of wanted, I mean, Parker is my grad student over there in the corner from my point of view. And so, you know, he's the one who's been in the classroom with the students and done an incredible job and seen it firsthand. I came to a couple of meetings and then this end presentation by the class. I was so impressed. I was so impressed. And I also felt that, you know, however we feel like about high school, I'm in my late 50s, so high school is a long way back. I'm like sitting there like, yeah, I don't know, you know, like this, right? And there were no AP classes when I was in school, right? So I'm like, like this. And I was like, wow, this redeems high school, like this type of work, like just my own idea of it. But I'll say like this. So, you know, in terms of the content and the skills and all of that, one of the most important things in the United States right now is this topic of sort of social justice, race relations, race politics. One of the, and it's always done this way, the quiet work of building a sort of sea change on things will be this type of class, this AP class. Because what it does is it means for the first time at the university level, I'm chair of gender and race studies, which includes African American studies as a major. And I was at Berkeley in African American studies before this. And one of the things we saw in both, coming from Oakland, coming from Tuscaloosa, this problem of the students don't have any formal training. So they come to the university and they're like, why should I do this? And it's always the odd thing out or on the margins. And the AP class within the high school generates a larger interest, not just the students in the course, but everybody. So you can see how across the country, so hats off to the people who've organized this, the slow, hard work of years. And then, you know, now in its third, fourth year, like that, it's a huge thing. And so to be present, you know, as an outsider, I don't have to do anything but show up, you know, for my hour, like now, my 2 minutes, right? Like this. This is how we change the conversation. And so in African American studies, though, in the university, very quickly, one of the most important things is we kind of rest, the background is African diaspora work. And so there are no African Americans without a diaspora story, right? So this opens up that idea from Detroit to Oakland to Tuscaloosa, this idea of the different ways that we both came to live where we live, but also then return, migration, everything. And the contribution, as was pointed out, you know, we would be the third largest independent country. You know, this is the type of work we need. So hats off to everybody, but really my grad student should have said something. You know, Charles is just being too polite. So.
Well, thank you. So let's let Parker add his, and after Parker has finished his, then we might circle back and see what else. I know that Cassie said something about her wanting to make other points. There is one chat that Rhodesia has already put up saying that she can make something happen. She might want to say something about that. But let's listen to Parker, and then let's circle back and see if there are comments or questions or things that you thought of. Rachel, any of you that you'd like to add before our time is up. So Parker, add your comments at this point, please.
Well, I'll just say real quickly that so I was a part of this. I was working with Dr. Jones or Ms. Jones and Ms. Hines for the last year as a graduate student in gender and race. And so I was in class once a week. So obviously they're the ones that have pulled all the weight. And I hope that, you know, my presence in the classroom has some sort of practical effect. I can talk about the subject matter. I can talk about how to write and research. So I hope that I was able to contribute in a kind of quantifiable way. But, you know, being 7-8 years away from where these students are in the high school classroom and taking AP classes, I know, you know, how much it will mean to have these skills once they get to college. And so the main thing for me, my presence in the classroom, is to not only show them that, you know, the university that's literally right across the street is accessible to them, but they can do the work and they can do it really well. It was just so exciting for me to work with these students and just to watch them talk, because it was just incredible where they were and what not just what they were able to talk about, but what they wanted to talk about. So I see my presence there as a way to show them that they can make it to college, they can do the work, absolutely, and that once they get there, that there will be people on their side, which is probably the most important part to me, because obviously Dr. McKnight will be on their side, but also to show them that there are people that are close to their age who don't have, the responsibility of a whole department that they can turn to. So I hope that they got a sense of that with my being there as well. So I'm just glad that I had this opportunity to do it. So thank you everybody that that facilitated that. And I'm sorry that the semester was cut short as well. I hated to miss out on that, but thank you, Ms. Jones and Ms. Hines. That was y'all's work. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Parker. Thank you for investing your time and efforts as well. Yeah, any comments or questions? Did I see your hand, Carrie? So just raise your hand. You might, if you want to speak up. Anybody? I know, Carrie, you had Aaron was your support person, graduate student, year before last, I guess it was, and Dr. Coop at the University of Alabama in Huntsville was a part of that support mechanism. Just let's open up for discussion. Unmic yourself and speak up.
Okay, well, I did. Anne-Marie Troop at UAH has been very helpful, and then Erin Roth actually carried over for 2 years. She was with me for the latter part of 3 years ago now, and then the full year 2 years ago. But we were not able to secure a graduate student last year, so we did have access to the university library, and we did some research work there, but I did not have a dedicated research assistant. But I can say that from a teacher's perspective, having Erin Wright as a graduate student in class was a great bridge for me, a liaison, both in the sense that she was able to relate to the students more on their level about current events and popular culture things that I may be aware of, but I might not possess the same credibility when I'm discussing. But also she was very helpful in the sense that the seminar instructor's role as far as what I can do with guiding work is very tightly defined. And so she was able to not necessarily proof their work, but to offer suggestions for their work and to guide them in research ways that are common knowledge to a grad student, but are unknown to a high school student, that I didn't want to overstep any bounds within the seminar role or the teacher's role that the seminar expectations include. So she was instrumental in the success of that group. Now this most recent group that had their unfortunate pandemic interrupted work, yeah, they also performed very well on the tests, but they didn't have that same benefit of someone in their corner, as Parker mentioned, someone there on their side. So I do think it's a very important component, and I hope to be able to renew that. We actually start back with staggered face-to-face classes next week, so I'm going to try to reestablish some of those ties. So, but I do think it's a great addition to the program. I'll just say that.
Great, thank you. Jackie, how much time do we have left on our clock? Unmute yourself, Jackie.
Obviously, this is a very engaging topic. Let's just add a couple more minutes because we are past 1:45, but I don't want to be the one to say, shut it down.
Okay, so what I'd ask everybody to do as time came to an end, Jackie, was to say whatever last sort of comment sentence that each might want to give. Ronesia has been commenting a message to you, Parker, in her notes. If you've seen the chat, you might want to take note of what she's committed to be supportive of there. So let's, yeah, there you go. Hey there. So let's go back to the beginning and just ask Cassie first to make any last comment that she might want to make about this, and then we'll go to Rachel for a last comment, then to Carrie, then to Jennifer, then to Carrie, then to Oots, then to Parker, in that order. So Cassie, any last comment to you?
Yes, I want to say that I think, as everybody can hear, it's all about the students. The way and it's about the teachers and the students ultimately, because the teachers are the ones who get the students to engage in the content in ways that really are exceeding all of our expectations. And that's been the case across all of the schools, and we appreciate Alabama's really been one of the leaders in that. And let me not end without highlighting Ronisha. I didn't know that she was going to be available to be with us today, but she is part of the magic. I always say this, she's part of the magic of the work of ADC, because she is 24/7 working with teachers, students, the resource development, and I wanted to highlight and thank her for that.
Yes, thank you, Ronisha. That's great. Thank you. Rachel?
Yeah, I guess closing comments would just be, this is such important work, and I hope we can continue to expand. There's a lot of interest out there right now. We've had, as I said, recently had some webinars with, I think, 125 people registered and 70 odd turned up, and then people watching videos afterwards. It's hugely important, as Dr. McKnight said, hugely important to do this work, to engage this work, to not be fearful of this work. If, as Carrie once said, as a middle-aged white guy, it's not always the most comfortable place to be. So putting the students at the center of it and let them guide you in their interests. That, for me, is the most powerful part of doing this course with African Diaspora. And I think it's a real opportunity for growth for everyone.
So, Rachel, can you quickly say, are we going to get shut down, Jackie, or can we just keep going on your nickel for another 2 or 3, 4 minutes?
2 to 3 minutes, yes.
Okay, all right, then we'll get shut down. So something happened last week in terms of what got accepted for this. Rachel, can you say that in about 15 seconds, in terms of the course and its new relationship to College Board?
I'm not quite sure what you're referring to, if you're referring to the Washington Post article,
yes,
or
yes.
Although that's just that was some. I encourage you to all put Washington Post African Diaspora, because that article really sums up student experiences and they're powerful, what it helped them do. So I don't know if Ronisha has the link and she can put it in the chat, but I would encourage you to read that, because it's incredibly powerful from the student experience point of view.
Good, thank you, Rachel. Carrie, any last word from you?
I just would like to say, how I felt blessed to be included in this project, both on behalf of my students, but also on myself. I think it's a great thing for us to be able, as professionals, to be able to offer insights to kids that they're going to need, in addition to teaching them the skills that they have to have. And this has just been revolutionary for me in my work with kids, as far as opening doors and offering opportunities.
Thank you, Carrie. Jennifer, any last word?
Yes, sir. I just would like to say thank you again for the opportunity. And just like Dr. Freeman, I am from a small town, Sumter County, the Black Belt. So I am just grateful for the opportunity, as far as myself professionally, to be a part of, of this program. And it has enlightened me in so many different ways to help me to help students. So thank you. Just thankful for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jennifer. Carrie?
Same, just so thankful. It really, as Central experiences some demographic changes, small, slight little ones, it really is another platform to bring kids together to where they can talk about things in a space and learn to do it with intelligence and research to back up their opinions, and really just to broaden their perspectives, because that's what we want to do as a school, is to create, global perspective and give kids the opportunity to do that. So thank you for giving us the outlet to do it.
Okay. Oots, any last word from you?
Thank you for the hard work.
All right. Thank you, Parker. Any last word from you?
Thank you, and
Okay.
whatever I can do in the future.
All right. Renisha did put in the chat the link to that article that we were referring to earlier. Thank you, Renisha. Okay, Jackie, that's it. We're all pleased to be a part of this. I am so happy that we had the opportunity for Alabama to be at the forefront of this important work. We don't always get the glory. We don't always even get the recognition of the good work that goes on in Alabama. And so I'm very happy and appreciate all that College Board has done, ETS has done, the ADC has done to ensure that we're at the forefront of talking about and teaching about and learning about the African diaspora. I have learned so much myself going to the meetings, that things I just didn't have a clue about, and I'm grateful as well. And thank you, Jackie, for letting us be a part of the Global Ties Alabama and the Perspectives Institute today. Thank you. Back to you, Jackie.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
everybody.
much. Thanks to our panel this afternoon. What incredible information. And you should know that this information is going nationwide and globally. We actually have members of the audience from the Washington, Virginia area and North Carolina. There's an African proverb that says, I am because we are. We are because I am. And none of this could happen without that being put into action. So we invite you to join us next week. We have another Global Perspectives Institute, and the focus will be on celebrating citizenship, the path to patriotism. It'll be moderated by one of our participants this afternoon, Becky Harshenko, who runs the Citizenship and ESL program at one of our churches here in Huntsville, and will be speaking to individuals who just received their citizenship as well as an immigration expert. So Dr. McKnight, think about joining us. We'll be reaching out to you in the future. Please know that everyone on this call is a new resource for Global Ties Alabama, and we will be providing support to Carrie Hurt at Grissom High School. Thanks again for being with us, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.